Chairman, we're now live.
Welcome to a virtual meeting of the Major Applications Planning Committee of the London Borough of Hillingdon. This virtual meeting is also being broadcast simultaneously on the Council's YouTube channel, Hillingdon, London. I'm Councillor Eddie Lavery, the Chairman of the committee and the Chairman of tonight's meeting. We've all done this often enough now. I'm not going to do all the online housekeeping. Just please do remember to keep your mobile phones to silent and your microphones muted. If I can do a roll call of attendance to confirm who's here. Councillor Tuckwell.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Duncan.
Present.
Councillor Hagger.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Higgins.
Present, Chairman.
Councillor Melvin.
Here, Chairman.
Councillor Morgan.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Morse.
Present, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Sansapori, I understand, is not going to join us.
Councillor
No.
Sansbury has sent his apologies, yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, that's everyone we were expecting. I will just confirm the officer team. Mandeep Malhotra, Planning Officer.
Present, Chairman.
Head of Planning, James Roger.
I'm present, Chairman.
Democratic Service Officer and Clerk, Luke Taylor.
I'm present, Chairman.
Legal Advisor, Glenn Egan.
Present, Chairman.
And Transport, Alan Tilley.
Present, Chairman.
Thank you. In terms of technical meeting control, if Council leads the virtual meeting for any part of the meeting, I will continue. Unless I've got less than 3 councillors, of course, you cannot vote on any item where you're not present for the whole of the item. In terms of apologies for absence tonight, we've only got Councillor Sansapori. Can I now do declarations of interest in matters coming before today's meeting?
Chairman, the final item on the agenda concerns Cranford Park. Members of the committee will be aware when there's been applications concerning Cranford Park previously, I have not been involved in those decisions. So if it's okay, I'll be leaving the meeting early, Chairman.
Okay, that's an early exit. Nicely placed
Glenn's case
on the agenda. Nice placing. Minutes of the meeting, 19th of August, are in your bundle. Can I take those as agreed? Yeah. We are considering the agenda tonight that was published by the Head of Planning. The only change is item 8, which was Allport House, Cowley Business Park, High Street, Cowley, was withdrawn by the Head of Planning yesterday. So we're not doing item 8. There are no petition items, so we're doing all the remaining items. All items are tonight in part 1. I will move now to item 6, which is Crown Trading Centre, Clayton Road, Hayes. Mandip, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just sharing the presentation with you now. So item number 6 on tonight's Planning Committee agenda is for the Crown Trading Estate or Crown Trading Centre on Clayton Road in Hayes. The application site is highlighted here in red on the location plan. The development seeks a demolition of the existing buildings and the erection of 2 blocks comprising of 3 to 11 stories in height with 407 residential units alongside 1,175 square meters of employment floor space. This is provided alongside 203 vehicle car parking spaces, cycle parking on site, landscape enhancements, and associated works. I will take you through the application drawing. So the constraints plan on site identifies that there are buildings to the bottom of to the south, which are listed buildings. So they comprise of Enterprise House predominantly. I'll take you through to the existing ground floor layout. So the existing site comprises of a number of fairly small scale or subdivided into smaller units of industrial floor area. Now, the application site was formerly in a strategic industrial location, but as part of our local plan review in 2014, it was identified as part of the sites that could be consolidated. So within our newly adopted local plan, adopted in January 2020, we have now got a site allocation which specifically looks at removing this site from the strategic industrial land. So it's no longer designated as an employment site, and it is set for a mixed-use residential-led development. That is effectively what the current application is proposing. If I take you through to the proposed ground floor plan for the application site, I wanted to just highlight that whilst I have just said that there are 2 blocks within the application, I mean there are 2 buildings. So there is the building on the left, which comprises of what are referred to in your plan packs, Block A and Block D. And then there is a larger building on the right-hand side, which is made up of blocks B, C, F and E as you go around the building. So that's what your detailed plans in your plan pack are showing. I'll take you through the ground floor. So if we bring up my cursor, let's see if we can get the pointer working. There we go. So you'll see that the Grand Union Canal runs along the plan on screen along at the top, and Clayton Road runs along the southern or the bottom of the application site. To this side, to the right-hand side of the plan is the Fairview industrial site. Now, this is an application that is also in for the redevelopment of the adjoining site. So again, that was another piece of strategic industrial land which was released from its designation and allocated for residential-led mixed-use development. So that's coming forward and should be at planning committee in the next few months. The developers of both of these sites have been jointly speaking to one another, and this area of land that I'm highlighting at the moment with the pointer will actually be a shared access road. So in the long term, part of the legal agreement requires that there will only be one entrance and one exit, and there will only be one shared space between the 2 development sites. And that's to ensure that we have as coordinated and comprehensive a development of this the 2 sites as possible. The canal, which runs along the site here to the top of the drawing, is currently closed off. So when I say closed off, the current buildings obviously have a boundary wall which don't allow any access or any visibility or permeability over into the canal. The new application does propose that the canal side is now opened up. There will be a new walkway along the rear of the site and new enhancements to allow full public access at all times of the day. This accessibility to the canal will also run through into the adjoining site. And so that's part of the negotiations that have been ongoing. Again, this is a ground floor general arrangement which tries to highlight the play areas and the ground floor spaces that have been allocated to the site. So there are elements of play and public open space designated for the development, both shared and publicly accessible. There is also podium level amenity space, and this is primarily to serve the future residents of the development. So I thought it would be useful to highlight that that's located centrally around the main built form of the buildings. Sorry, there's a repetition of the ground floor plan. I'm not sure why. If I take you through to the Mezzanine Plan, you'll have seen on the ground floor there was allocated parking in the areas that I'm highlighting with the pointer now. The Mezzanine Plan also identifies that there are areas of additional parking within a mezzanine in the larger block, and that's to make sure that there's adequate parking for the development. The mezzanine, however, does allow the provision of lots of duplex family homes along the development site. So you'll see that there are a number of duplex, larger family-sized properties proposed, and we have tried to make the most of creating duplex homes within the development. This is a typical first floor plan. Now, I'd like to point out that I did mention that there's an addendum on this application, and one of the things that we have sought to do via the addendum is to identify that there are actually pinch points within the development at some of these corner junctions. So there are a number of units whereby we're seeking to control that there is obscure glazing provided to some of these studios to prevent the oblique overlooking into some of these units along which could have provided oblique angles. So this occurs primarily in this area, as I'm pointing out on the screen, and then in some instances in this area to the south. As I take you up the building, so this is the first floor plan, there are instances of overlooking again at second floor level, but these have been addressed through the addendum in order to seek some obscure glazing to prevent those oblique areas of overlooking. As you climb up the building, however, third floor plan, you'll see that that relationship changes because there is no built form within those areas and those pinch points. So it does only relate to a very few number of units, which are clearly identified in the addendum. We run up the building, we've got a 4th floor. So the building does go up the whole way. At 7th floor level, there is a step in along the Clayton Road frontage. And then as we climb up the building, 8th floor, which is the equivalent of the 10th floor, or level 10 of this building. And then the top floor is the 11th story of this building. Take you through to the elevation plans, which might help you to see some of the step formations. So this is the north elevation on the top, which is the canal side. And then we have the eastern elevations, the southern elevations. So this is the primary Clayton Road frontage, and then the western elevations. This is the elevations for the residential park. I thought it might be helpful, or we as officers have been provided with lots of CGI views, and we wanted to share them with you. We appreciate that they won't be approved CGIs, but it's very easy to take the plans and not be able to see them in the context of the wider surroundings. So this is a CGI view of the shared access road. So as I mentioned, there is the Crown Development site, which is the application before you today. And over this side of the road will be the future Fairview development proposals. This is again a view of the central route through from Clayton Road. So the canal is in the distance at the back end. So this is the shared space that's provided as part of the development. And then this is a view site central routes through the site from the canal. So there are canal side enhancements proposed. They are still indicative at the moment, and they are subject to detailed drawings and design being worked up in conjunction with the Canals and River Trust. So they need to be happy with the proposals that are put forward. There are also, so this is the southern elevation facing onto Clayton Road. We have secured works which would deliver enhancements along Clayton Road. If you're aware of the current environment, it is heavily parked and it's also very restricted. So there are enhancements to try and get a healthy street scheme along Clayton Road. So that's looking at opening up and widening the road, providing better public and public footpaths, and also potentially cycle routes to encourage walking and cycling through the site. This is one of the views we all really wanted to share, and that's the view from the canal. There have been concerns raised from third parties about the impact of the development on the canal. Now, we have sought to break up the bulk of the building so that there is limited development within this central section. So it has been deemed to be an acceptable design solution along the canal side. And I appreciate that there are concerns raised by other third parties, but our design officer does feel that the proposals are an enhancement to the canal. One of the other points that was raised was that there may be PV on top of the highest part of the building. So this is the highest part of the building. It would be the 11th stories along the canal. We have sought to impose a further condition whereby we require further details of the tilt of all of the proposed PVs at roof level to ensure that there wouldn't be any additional height added to the built form, which would add to the potential increased, add to the Balkan height from increased views. We have put that through in the addendum, so hopefully that should be available for you to look through. And there's another Clayton Road elevation. I'm going in the wrong direction, I'm sorry. We've already seen these. I'll take you through to some photographs of the application site. So this is a view from the site entrance looking northwest. I'm sorry that this one seems to be blank. Oh no, there we go. Just took a while to load. This is a view from the site entrance looking north. So you have Clayton Road visible on the left-hand side, and there is some of the parking that I mentioned that you already have along Clayton Road. And then a view from the site entrance looking east. The adjoining roads, and then that's northeast visibility. So these are the existing industrial units which will be lost. You can actually see Enterprise House in the distance, and also, and some of the development that's taking place along on the old vinyl factory from this image, which does give you some context of the sorts of height and built form that is emerging in the area. Sorry. So the application has been considered to be acceptable. It's providing an appropriate mix of uses in line with the council's site allocation for the development site. The proposed percentage of homes to be delivered as affordable housing by habitable room has been reviewed independently and the maximum reasonable offered is 26%. The 10-year split that's being provided is 64% for London affordable rent and 36% shared ownership. And they are relatively aligned with the 70-30 split that's required under planning policy requirements. It has been independently reviewed, and that was the maximum reasonable that could be delivered as part of this redevelopment. The application site has been through significant negotiation, and one of the benefits of the application that's before us, if I take you back to one of the plans from earlier today, is that we've managed to negotiate what we feel is a comprehensive scheme, insofar as there are areas of land which would otherwise potentially be compromised if you had boundary fences running down them, which delineated one site from another, which we sought to secure as comprehensive schemes. We've done this along Nestles Avenue to try and secure the best development possible, and I think it's been achieved here. The application has been recommended for approval, and I will pass back to Councillor Lavery and stop sharing the presentation.
Thank you, Mandip. Mandip did refer to it several times in her presentation, but there is a 3-page addendum on this item. So there's quite a lot of items you might have on your tick list that are covered in the addendum. Councillor Tuckwell, you indicated.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for a comprehensive presentation on what is a very big development, a very big report, and a very big addendum sheet to get through. So I'll kick off. There'll no doubt be a few questions on this one. So I'm pleased that we picked up a new condition on overheating, because that was one I had here. I'm really pleased that we can see now the fire condition has been enhanced, and we've now got some trees which weren't included. So I'm pleased that we've picked those up. I'll run through some points here which Mandip might be able to pick up, but on page 71 it mentions that the air quality is not neutral, and it should be. I'll leave you to comment on that one. I'm also interested to hear about how we're going to encourage residents to recycle, which is covered on pages 102, 103. And I'm also be interested to hear about a little bit more about those separation distances, and where you mentioned the obscure glazing, because that is referred to several times as a bit of a concern by our own sort of conservation officers or design officers. So I'll pause there, as I'm sure many other members have got some questions, but if you could just pick those points up, that'd be great.
Mandip?
Apologies. Would you like me to share the presentation again, or shall I just verbally go through things like the pinch point?
Do it verbally for a moment, Mandip, and then see where we get to. Yep.
So we have had a detailed look at the plans, and what we have found is that there are instances whereby you have 2 windows serving 1 room. Therefore, it's perfectly acceptable to obscure glaze 1 to still provide sufficient outlook from that room. In other scenarios, there is actually a studio unit that's provided, whereby the main outlook is out onto the canal, and therefore we have sought to obscure glaze all of the windows on the other side of the studio unit, because they will get the primary part of their light will be from the canal. So we feel that we've come to a point where there are relatively few units affected, and we feel that conditions to obscure glaze one of the 2 affected properties will overcome some of those concerns with regard to those pinch points, and will ensure that there's adequate amenity for future residents. If I go on to air quality, I appreciate that the development is not air quality neutral. However, we have secured an air quality damage cost, which is recorded on page 10 under the recommendation section. So there is acknowledgement that the development is not air quality neutral, and we have sought to secure the standard travel plan, and there is a low emission strategy alongside this application. but the air quality damage cost will go towards delivering some of the goals from the air quality management plan, and those have been through an action plan, I believe, that's published, and that's delivered by the in-house team. I'm sure, the in-house air quality officers. Now I need to find, so page 102 was mentioned, and that's with regard to, I think you said recycling, Councillor Tuckwell.
Yeah, it was how we encourage residents to recycle.
So we do have refuse and recycling stores within the development, and that is a standard. I'm not sure that they're separated, but we are providing the facilities for all of the future residents to recycle in the same way that all householders do within the borough. Is that okay?
Yeah, it would be just good.
I think we might just come back to that in a bit, man. I'm going to hold that one, if I may. I think we may just need to tweak a condition, but I'll hold for that. Councillor Morse, I saw you indicate. Councillor Morse?
Thank you, Chair. I hope you can hear me. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I've got you.
Okay, good. I appreciate you're going to modify some of the conditions, but I've given this a lot of study, and I'm in favour of it. I'm particularly impressed with some of the design features. I appreciate we've gone to the limit in terms of height, which is acceptable in my opinion. However, it's the areas of amenity around the building I think are highly appropriate. I noticed that we're planning to widen Clayton Road, I think, which is a key feature of this area. So my view, I appreciate this is going to be a substantial change to what Hayes looks like, but I actually think that this is as a scheme is very thorough, very carefully planned, and I'm totally in support of it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, anybody else going to come in on this one? I'm seeing no other hands.
Councillor
That's quicker
Duncan
than
and
I-
Councillor Morgan seem to be indicating.
Yes.
Did I miss them? Right, Councillor
Yes.
Duncan then. I was thinking 2 hands for this one was too little. I really was. I was thinking this is just too easy tonight.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it is a good scheme, and I realise this is land that has been removed in the plan. I mean, it's it's strange that last week at full council we're talking about an Article 4 to protect employment land, but anyway, legislation has happened apace, and we are in this position. I won't be voting for this. I do think it's a good scheme, but it is in the Hayes focus area for air quality. I'm sure that in time, yes, when we're all driving electric vehicles, and I do note and appreciate that the landscaping condition now has pollution absorbing and reducing planting in it, which I very much appreciate. But to put 407 units, new residential units, into an area of poor air quality, I'm afraid is just a step too far for me. And so unfortunately, I will not be voting for this. I would just like to ask a question about the overheating condition. Can you just point that out to me? Because this is a matter that's been coming up with residents on certain developments that have already been built. And looking through this, I didn't actually see that.
It's in the addendum, Councillor Duncan. It was missed in the original. It's in the addendum, though.
Oh, I've had a quick look through there. What is it in the addendum?
It's the second one down in the addendum. New condition re-overheating assessment.
Oh, good. Well, I'm very pleased that that is being put in, because we're finding some people in developments where there's very, very good insulation work that has gone into the development, but during the heat waves that we had in May and earlier this year has made it unbearable for them to stay in their homes. So thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Morgan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I mean, so it looks a fairly decent scheme. What I do have concerns about are the play areas that's proposed on the canal side, along by the canal. Surely our health and safety should be turning around and saying, we've got to make sure that it's properly fenced. You know, the last thing we want is children falling into the canal due to a play area being made available for them.
Mandip, would you care to comment?
Of course, sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. So we have reserved the play space on this plan as indicative. The majority of the children's play is earmarked for the spaces between the buildings. So yes, there could potentially be play along the canal, but like you just highlighted, it will be subject to its design and safety measures that are put in place, and also getting sign off from third parties like the Canals and River Trust. So there is sufficient play space on the site, but it will be subject to further detailing through the conditions.
Okay, I think that probably covers that. Councillor Higgins, you indicated, and then I got Councillor Tuckwell.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I actually, with Councillor Duncan on this, I think it's an overdevelopment of the site. I understand all the attractive bits to it, and it wouldn't be right for me to sort of support something that in some ways taking away businesses and development of businesses in the borough, which we need to employ people. It's all right, they can live somewhere, but where they're going to work. So I too will not be supporting this, but abstaining.
Okay, Councillor Tuckwell, you're my last speaker, I think.
I think that was someone else waved after me, but
it was Councillor Higgins waved after you. I reversed the order.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, I think this scheme's got a lot of merit. I mean, the CGI pictures look very good. I know we can't always rely on those, but they look quite stylish. But I think there's an awful lot of work on this particular application that I think needs some further fleshing out. I mean, you know, you talked about the waste condition might need a bit of tweaking. But we've also had a 3-page addendum come out as well. So it might be that we need to do a little bit of further work before we can consider this full application in the round. But I'd be interested to hear what other members think about that. And I could see
getting members looking comfortable, which is interesting tonight. James, would you care to just add me some comment?
Yeah, if I can give some members comfort in why they might wish to make a decision tonight. So firstly, there was an issue raised concerning overheating. So all of the blocks on this development have straight planes. What I mean by that is it's all square or rectangular, all the blocks. And the aspect of the windows, there's nothing directly south facing. Everything's got a kind of northeasterly, southwesterly, because of the way the scheme's aligned in terms of where north is and south is. There aren't any units that are single aspect directly south facing, and this is very important because there is a scheme. I'm not going to mention what it is, but it's near Hayes Station. That Councillor Duncan's right. There is a scheme in Hayes, but there has been issues regarding overheating, and I know the development, and it's because there's units directly south facing. That's where you kind of have the problem. So the condition, the addendum is more sort of bolt and braces. It will reinforce the situation and enable us to ensure the developers put steps in to ensure there isn't overheating. But the starting position is there isn't anything directly south facing to start with. And concerning employment, it's important to stress, and Mandip only very briefly touched on her presentation, and page 51 explains in more detail that there's 1,175 square meters of B1 floor space. This isn't a entirely housing development, and there is mathematical calculations based on the London Employment Sites database that means that could be anything up to 104 jobs. So yes, obviously redeveloping an employment site, there's impacts on local employment, but this is not a purely residential scheme. There would be some quid pro quo employment benefits that derive from this development proposal. And then as a final point, and I know members will already be aware of this, there's a very comprehensive 106 package on page 10. So there's a lot of money going towards highway, canal sides, air quality, play space and other improvements, that, as well as the affordable housing offer. And then just as a final point, it is a GLA referable scheme. So although your officers through external consultants have sought to maximise as far as possible the affordable housing offer, which is 26% by habitable room, we know as a fact that the Mayor's going to bring in separate consultants and, if at all possible, try and squeeze even more affordable housing out of the applicant. I can say that publicly because we basically know that's going to happen. So in effect, I think there are quite a lot of reasons to give members comfort that they can proceed with a decision on this application this evening. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Councillor Hagar seems to be indicating.
Councillor Hagar, did you want to come in? I'm not sure she did.
Thank you. I was waving profusely, but I don't think you can see me.
I was looking at something else at the same time.
No problem. It is a hefty package here. My concerns have been raised by my fellow councillors. For me, the biggest one is air quality, but we have addressed that. And I don't think there's any more we can do with it. Safety, definitely along the canal. And again, we've addressed that. And the other one, personally, was just the height. So I actually think we haven't, in short, there's not a lot we can do. I think the officers have done really well in actually compacting it all together and looking at it. So I'm actually happy to support officers' recommendations, Chair, and move it.
Thank you, Councillor Hagar. I was hoping somebody would do something in a moment. That's very useful. Councillor Tackwell, you're recycling it. I think the Service and Delivery Management Plan that's an unusually detailed version of that we've got tonight, which I think picks up the concern. That's what I was looking for when I didn't see Councillor Hagar. I was looking to see where it was. All right, Councillor Hagar has given me a proposal. I've got no other members indicating. So, Councillor Melvin?
Yes, I was just going to say I agree with all that Councillor Hagar said, and I'm quite happy to second her proposal.
Okay, Councillor Morse was going to, I think, if you hadn't. Okay, I'm proposed and seconded, therefore I will take it to the vote. Can I begin with Councillor Tackwell, please?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Duncan?
Against.
Councillor Hagar?
Chair.
Oh, you proposed, so I'm taking you as good. Sorry, Councillor Higgins, you're abstaining, you indicated?
I'm abstaining. It's a very good scheme, but I think it's overdone. Yeah.
Right. Councillor Melvin, you seconded. Councillor Morgan?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Morse?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I make that we've got 5 votes for, 1 against and 1 abstention. Would you agree with that, Luke?
Yeah, I can confirm that's the same.
So that one is approved. Thank you very much. I now move to item 7, Unit 4, Victoria Retail Park, Crown Road, Ruislip, which is a little easier, I think.
Thank you, Chairman.
When you're ready.
I'm just sharing the presentation with you. So item 7 is Unit 4 in the Victoria Retail Park. Members should note there is an addendum on this item, which is fairly brief and housekeeping, as we like to put it. The application seeks the change of use. I'm just trying to get through to the presentation. Yep, the change of use of Unit 4 within the development site from B8 use to a mixed B2 and B8 use alongside B1C, so an industrial processing use. Now the B1C use has now changed to an E use under the new use class order that was implemented and adopted this month, hence the reason that some of our reports now make reference to 2 different use classes, and that's primarily to provide some information for your purposes about what the historic use was that you're familiar with, and then also making reference to the new use classes. I think there will be a training session in due course about all of the changes that have occurred over the summer in terms of planning policies, and it will include the changes to the use classes order. Now, the E-use class will be a very broad use class. So the reason that some of the conditions are drafted in the way that they are is to ensure that we're not going to allow some forms of, so E-use class also includes retail. So the conditions within the officer report do restrict the future B1C or E-use class to industrial and employment uses only. The application also seeks permission for a new dock pit and cycle shelter. So I'll take you through the application site plans. As this is a change of use only, there are actually no internal changes proposed to the application site. The majority of the changes, as you can see from this proposed site layout, are to install something called a dock leveler. So that's in this area here, and I believe that's I take you through to the elevations. You can see that this is the existing site layout plan, and therefore the proposed layout is providing this rectangular thing that's called a dock leveler. If I take you through to the elevation plans, you can actually see in more detail that as existing, the building and the land along the main elevation is flat, and as part of the proposed development there is a realignment of the land, and that's to bring the land down, and I assume it's to allow for ease of goods to be offloaded and added into the building by these bays within the industrial shed. So there are very few alterations proposed. There are some external alterations. There are some alterations to the cladding, which we have sought to secure is compliant with the most up-to-date building regulations, depending on when the implementation of this permission will be. But effectively, the development is just seeking to diversify the uses and provide a small marginal increase in the car parking on site. It has been assessed and deemed to be acceptable. The widening of the land uses will ensure the viability of the unit within the strategic industrial site. The proposal does not result in harm to any amenities of neighbouring occupants or the local highway network. I will take you through to some photographs. So this is a bird's eye view of the existing site. Again, there are no internal alterations, just minor external ones, and works within the car parking area. This is the application site. And the application has been recommended for approval, subject to various conditions within the committee report. I will now stop sharing the presentation and hand back to Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Amanda. Councillor Higgins, you indicated. Councillor Duncan, I've got, and then Councillor Tuckwell.
Thank you, Lee. I was going to call you leader then. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, anyway, that's a slip of the tongue, Freud there. Yes, no, I like this a lot. I don't think there's any. We haven't got anything to do with it because we've already sort of passed it, haven't we, before? So, yeah, I'd like to go with officer recommendations and propose this, please.
Councillor Duncan?
Yes, I welcome this. It is bringing an existing use into a more modern scenario, and we welcome that. We welcome it for employment purposes, and I'd like to second it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Tuckwell, do you wish to add, or were you going to do one of the two above?
I know this site very well. It's in my ward, and I'm very happy with it. My only question is we've got an increase in parking. Condition 5 talks very gallantly about low emissions, but the increase in electric parking points, free passive, free active, seems a little bit unambitious. Any way we can future-proof that and increase that a bit.
Amanda, what have we got? Or Alan,
actually, sorry, the current policy is actually only 5%. So I appreciate that we should maybe be trying harder, but it's quite difficult to try harder when it's when the policy is against us. I mean, we do try harder on the residential where the policy is a lot more stringent. But I note your concern.
Okay.
Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, I mean, it is more difficult on industrial sites. I'm not spotting any other hands. No, I haven't. In that case, I will go. I am proposed and seconded, so I will go to the vote. Councillor Tuckwell?
For Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Duncan, you seconded. Councillor Hagger?
For, Chairman.
Councillor Higgins, you proposed. Councillor Melvin.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Morgan.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Morse.
For, Mr. Chairman.
I make that 7-4, and therefore that one's approved. You concur, Luke?
Yeah, concur. It's unanimous.
Thank you very much. Item 8 was withdrawn from the agenda. Item 9 is Barton Buildings Industrial Estate, Uxbridge Industrial Estate, and it's another industrial one. So, Mandip, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 9 seeks the demolition of the existing buildings and the redevelopment of the site to provide 2 industrial units. Now, if I take you through the drawings again, as I mentioned, this application site is within another industrial and designated employment site. So the application site is the land outlined in red on your screens at the moment. The existing plan shows or identifies the scope of the built form on the site in a brown shaded colour, with the majority of car parking located along the frontage of Arundel Road, as I'm highlighting with the pointer. So that's just a close-up of those existing ground floor plans. So if I take you through some of the existing photographs, it is a fairly old building, probably not fit for purpose in terms of its floor-to-ceiling heights for more modern commercial uses. So the existing elevations are shown on screen now, and the proposed ground floor plan seeks to provide 2 larger units within the application site, with reconfiguration, with some car parking retained along the frontage, some moved to within the application site. And if I take you through to, I believe I have a swept path plan, maybe I don't. So there is a service yard just here, which allows for larger vehicles to come into the site, turn and exit the site in forward motion, just for avoidance of doubt in case it's not in some of the plans. So this is a proposed roof plan with some PVs proposed to meet the energy requirements of the site. These are the proposed elevations for the application site. So this is the northeast and northwest, northwest being the main frontage, and then the southwest and southeast elevations. This is a proposed survey plan which shows the overlay of the previous built form, and then the grey denotes the proposed development. So it is proposed to be finished in fairly typical industrial finishes, and it's deemed to be acceptable given its location within an industrial estate. I'll take you through to some photographs of the existing site area. That's the main frontage along Arundel Road. So the site is part of the Uxbridge Industrial Estate, and it's a strategic industrial location. Buildings are deemed to be of an industrial appearance and considered to be an acceptable design. The proposal does not adversely impact on neighbouring amenity, given that the closest neighbours are a considerable distance away, and subject to appropriate conditions, the application is recommended for approval. I will stop sharing and hand back to Councillor Lavery.
Councillor Higgins, you indicated Councillor Duncan.
Yes.
Councillor Higgins first, then Councillor Duncan.
Again,
then Councillor Tuckwell.
It's been thought out well, like it. I will propose this. It's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan.
Yes, it's good to see that we're still attracting investment in employment, in bringing up to date these 2 units to comply with modern demands and hopefully go into the future providing employment. So very happy to second it, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Tuckwell.
Yeah, likewise, I really like this scheme, but I just wanted to test condition 15, which is the restricting vehicles of up to 7.5 tonnes. Is that because of the limited access around the rear of the site?
I'm guessing yes, but who's taking that one? Is that Alan or Mandip? Mandip has flagged to take it.
Sorry, yes, Councillor. The primary reason for the restriction on the size of vehicles is that a larger vehicle could not turn in that service yard, which I indicated on the plans. And the last thing we want is for an operator with larger vehicles to then cause gridlock along Arundel Road. So yes, it's specifically there to protect other users in the industrial estate.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I may. Chairman, if I may
Yeah.
add that the roads surrounding the application site are also covered by a 7.5 ton weight limit.
Thank you, Alan. That's very helpful. That's very helpful indeed. I'm not seeing anybody else indicate we are proposed and seconded, so therefore I will proceed to the vote. Councillor Tuckwell?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Duncan, you seconded. Councillor Hagger?
For, Chair.
Councillor Higgins, you propose. Councillor Melvin?
I'm for, Chairman.
Councillor Morgan?
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Morse?
For, Mr. Chairman.
So we have got seven in favour. That's unanimous and approved. Do you agree, Luke?
Yeah, I agree with that, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, we're staying with industrial sites tonight. Trade City Business Park, Cowley Mill Road, Uxbridge, and this is about a 24-hour-a-day permission. It's no changes to buildings. Mandip, will you take us through this one, please?
Mandip, if it helps, I've got the presentation up as well, so I can share if you're having problems.
Yeah, it looks like we froze there for a minute, Luke.
Okay, just bear with it in case Mandip's connection comes back.
I think all the connections froze.
Okay.
Because everybody seemed to freeze for a minute.
Everyone else is moving, but Mandip still
is.
Yeah.
Matt, yeah.
Right, Mandip's left the meeting, so she might rejoin in a moment, and then we can go.
Mandip's effectively rejoining. She'll be with us in a few seconds. So
okay, thank you.
I'm going to wait if that's okay, Chairman.
No, we will wait. We will just hold there if we can.
Chairman, it may help if I briefly mention the addendum. Oh, I'll step back because Mandip's just joined again.
Mandip, you're back with us?
I am so sorry. I'm not sure what happened. I'm just trying to load up the presentation so I can share it with you. Are you happy to wait for a minute?
Thank you. Yeah, please do.
So, Chairman, I was just saying there is an addendum on this item.
There is indeed, yes, and I will draw members' attention to it. It does tighten some of the conditions, which is its primary function.
That's right. I can, while we're waiting for the presentation to load, I can take you through. So the application seeks to effectively remove a previously imposed condition which restricts 24-hour access into the wider Cowley Mill, into the Trade City Business Park, which is located on Cowley Mill Road. We have in quite some detail scrutinised the details of this application, and that's primarily because we have obviously received a number of neighbour objections about noise and so on. We have been through, we've reviewed the noise report by an independent third party, and they have concluded that subject to conditions, the number of the change to the hours of operation are deemed to be acceptable. Now I am at the presentation, so I'll take you through the proposal. So the Trade City Business Park is this area that's highlighted in red, but this is only part of the Trade City Business Park. The remainder of the business park, I'm going to turn my pointer on, is actually over here. So hopefully there's a more detailed plan. Yes, here we go. So as you enter the application site from Cowley Mill Road, which is as I'm pointing out on the screen, you travel in to the business park, and you can either head straight into the application site that we're considering, or you can turn into what is otherwise referred to as a different phase of Trade City Business Park. Now, the application before us is only seeking 24-hour operation into the units that are highlighted in purple. So the units within this area, which is not highlighted in a colour or not within the red line plan, would not be having 24, or is not proposing to seek 24-hour operation of its units. So it is only limited to these units here. And these are the units which are deemed to be the further away from the main residential properties on Cowley Mill Road. And I think that's the main reason why it's been indicated that the levels of noise generated by 24-hour operation in this part of the application site would not be harmful to the amenities of those residents living along Cowley Mill Road. We did also undertake our own survey, and that was primarily to ensure that we were confident that the Royal Mail Depot, which operates from this area, which is outside the red line, but I'm trying to indicate where it is on my by the pointer, is actually operating 24 hours. And so the results of that survey work did actually highlight that there are still significant movements from the Royal Mail Depot, which does have 24-hour operation along that road. They are detailed on page 210, where you can see that there are a lot of overnight movements, but the overnight movements included vehicles and staff to the Royal Mail Depot. But then there was a separate exercise that we tried to undertake to find out how many larger goods vehicles also moved in and out of the trading estate overnight. And so there were some quite considerable numbers. I think the highest came to 151 movements overnight, and obviously there were quieter days where there were only 8 movements overnight, but in general, on average, I think there would have been somewhere between 80 and 100 movements on average per day. So the existing industrial estate is operating, the existing access road that's seeking 24-hour permission effectively is already operational with 24-hour vehicle movements, and it's not noted that there have been any enforcement complaints. So this was also something we looked into. Enforcement have not recorded any complaints with regard to noise harm arising from Royal Mail in the last, I think, 5 years. That was as far back as I searched. I'll take you through the bird's eye. So this is a bird's eye view of the application site, and they're fairly standard industrial and commercial units, and the canal runs along the site. So this is the Royal Mail Depot that I was referring to a moment ago. These are just some images of the Trade City Business Park as it operates at the moment. So, and that's the Royal Mail Depot as you exit out onto Cowley Mill Road, which is just here. And that's the junction of the site and Royal Mail, or the junction into the site. So the recordings that I highlighted on page 210 were taken at this point here to ensure that we felt comfortable that the road was actually, and the Royal Mail were using their site as a 24-hour operation. So the application has been recommended for approval. Councillor Lavery has already mentioned that there are some amendments proposed in the addendum, and I will hand back to Councillor Lavery and James Roger.
James, I'll take you first before I take councillors.
Just want to add a little bit to Amanda's presentation. So hopefully members noted a particular point from the photos, that because these units, they're kind of quite small, high-spec units, they're effectively the sort of businesses that operate them and basically involve white vans, to put it bluntly. They're not big enough for the likes of Ocado or the sort of operations that would involve large fleets, because they're just not that size. So what officers have tried to do is think, well, what would be a problem to us if this is 24 hours? And we know from 1 to other locations in the borough that what actually causes our residents the biggest problem is skip lorries. So it's skip businesses. And so and there's a reason for that the empty skips, the chains, the skips, they can be quite noisy, much noisier than a small lorry or heavy goods vehicle driving at 3 in the morning. So it's those skips that can basically wake up a local resident, and that's when we as a council will receive a complaint. And that may partly explain why there aren't complaints regarding the Royal Mail depot, because it's not those sort of vehicles involved. And that's why in the addendum there's a very important planning condition we've added to effectively control this, so that there's no skip hire businesses. So there are no skip hire businesses at the moment. And to me, that condition in the addendum takes me from a position of this being perhaps an unbalanced to one that I'm actually very comfortable recommending approval for. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hager, followed by Councillor Tuckwell.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can
Followed
hear.
by Councillor Higgins.
I can hear what officers are saying about the report. I still have concerns actually regarding the traffic flow and the noise. I understand we've got the conditions in, I understand about the HGV and the skips, but I think for me, and we probably can't answer this question, but for me, is it how much of an increase are we looking at? Because in a logical term, we've already got the Royal Mail coming in and out. If we've got another 30 white vans, this is probably be the height, and it probably wouldn't happen, but 30 white vans accessing that at 3 a.m. in the morning is going to be noisy because people are going to be asleep. So I think one of my questions is, have we got any idea or any limit on how many vans will be accessing that? Thank you, Chair.
Mandip. No. Yes. No. Mandip.
In terms of noise, it has been. So the trip I think I should see if Alan Tinney can assess the trip generation and come back to noise.
Sorry, if I may help members, there's a reason for the first box. The second box in the addendum. So all of the units are currently occupied. So what this means is that when we did the survey, there isn't the issue that you've got vacant units and suddenly by allowing 24-hour use, with 5 units in operation and let's say hypothetically 5 weren't, you'd suddenly see this huge spike in overnight traffic movements. Yes, there may be more a flattening out of the vehicle movement, so that rather than them being bunched up with vehicles involved in businesses trying to comply with the planning condition, that they are taking advantage of overnight movements. But what in effect the survey that was undertaken highlighted is there's already very large amounts of movements of small vehicles going up and down Cowley Mill Road. So if we were attempting to, let's say, turn this on its head and refuse an application on noise grounds, it'd be incredibly difficult when you've got a large volume of vehicles and the vehicles associated with this site are not making any greater noise than the vehicles coming out the Royal Mail depot. And this is why I think the skip hire business condition is almost a deal breaker on this, because we do know from one or two other parts of the borough that when there are noise complaints concerning employment sites, very often the word skips and skip hire come into the equation. So hopefully that helps, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Hager's looking a little bit more comfortable. Councillor Tuckwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm happy with the conditions that were included in the addendum. I think they go quite a long way to protect residents in Cowley Mill Road. I can see, as James has just explained there, how it will probably smooth the traffic flow over the 24-hour period rather than concentrate it all into one period. I think the other thing we've got to bear in mind is Royal Mail are already there. They're already in extensive operation, which are operating, as has been said, 24 hours a day, and that's going to continue. And I also think that by opening up that estate to this change, also then just opens up commercial premises to maybe future employment as well. So I welcome this scheme, although I do recognise the issues that were raised by residents, but I think we've conditioned them correctly.
Okay, I've got Councillor Higgins, Councillor Morgan. I know Councillor Morgan's microphone's on. But I couldn't work out whether he was signaling to me or not. But I'll come to you in a moment if you are. Councillor Higgins, I had you next on my list. So
thank you, Chairman. I think the conditions are really relatively good. I don't. This is. I may be pushing my luck, which is not unusual for me anyway.
You said it.
Yeah, and I will propose this. I have no problem with that either. But I do want to. Is there any way that we can get some mitigation to air pollution in some way? I don't know whether there is a place that we could plant some trees or something. I don't know, but it would ease my view, because most of these vehicles will be diesel, they will be creating pollution, and I know there's already pollution issues already with the Royal Mail. I'm just saying, is there anything we can do to sort of put a condition or informative to have somewhere that they could plant some trees or something on site that would sort of put it down? But I'll propose it. Well, that's the first.
Well, we have got a low emission strategy in condition 4.
I do. Yeah, I've read that, but it's not. It doesn't go far enough as far as I'm concerned. I just think.
Okay, let me hold that one for a minute and see what anybody else gives me. Councillor Morgan, then Councillor Morse.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Generally, I'm in favour of what we have here, and if Councillor Higgins is proposing it, I'm quite happy to second. I just have a couple of questions, and unfortunately, I have not been able to see it in the addendum. Phase 1, are we going to make sure that they can't also switch to 24/7 operation around there? And do we have a no idling point so that vehicles are not sitting there idling for hours on end?
Okay, I think the first bit is that would be outside the red line site for this, so therefore they would have to come back to us. And given that they're directly behind the residents, I suspect that officers would be not recommending that to us. I'll confirm in a moment. Councillor Morse, can I just take you?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only points I'd like to make, I think the fact that Royal Mail are using HG vehicles already for 24 hours sets the acoustic character of this area. And I think the point made by the head of planning is actually accurate, because it is these heavy large ones which actually add to it. And so I am actually in favour of this, and I'd like to express my opinion. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. So the only 2 outstanding questions, Mandip, I've got is, can we do anything with tree planting, or are we pushing our luck? And can we do anything on vehicle idling?
So I'll answer the easier one first. We can add a condition to prevent idling of vehicles, and it's something that we should possibly do as standard. With regard to the low emission strategy, I don't see why we can't suggest, as part of an informative, that it seeks to try its hardest to include tree planting. However, if there are other methods like imposing occupiers to have low emission vehicle fleets, obviously that would be more beneficial than the planting of a few trees. So
I think your informative has done the trick. Councillor Higgins is giving me a thumbs up, so that I will take as agreement. I think we are done. I think everyone is comfortable.
Councillor
Sorry,
is indicating, Chairman.
Sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Duncan.
Yeah, sorry, I was indicating a little while ago. I have concerns, like other members, about the noise. It's a very narrow road, Cowley Mill Road, with houses very, very close to the road. And I hear what's said about the Royal Mail vehicles, but some of the vehicles going into these industrial units do seem to me to be larger than that. And I just wondered if there's some way of restricting that size. I know we're saying no skip hire and this sort of thing, but can we put a restriction on the size of vehicle? Because if they're all comparable with Royal Mail vans, some of which are quite big, but they're not lorries, they're not very large vehicles. And I think there are some larger vehicles that do use some of those units when I've been down there in the past to the post office and the sorting office.
Councillor Duncan, I get officers to correct me if I'm wrong. I thought the Royal Mail were using HGVs as well as small vans. Alan or Mandip, somebody help me. What are Royal Mail using at the moment?
I'm pleased to answer that one, Chairman. The area, as I've already mentioned, is governed by a 7.5 tonne weight restriction, except for access. And as James mentioned at the start of the discussion on this item, the scale of the units within the Trade City estate, they're all small. They're not the type of units that attract large articulated vehicles. Evidence provided by the applicant showed that over a 24-hour period, there were just 4 vehicles that were either articulated or 4-axle. So unless the form of the development changes, I wouldn't expect the type of vehicles visiting the site to change either.
Thank you for that information. But if we're going to have these 4 articulated lorries rolling down the road at 3 in the morning, I think that's the very point that Councillor Hagger was saying. Is there some way that we can say, yes, you can be open for 24 hours, but the very heaviest movements...
You're looking at a weight restriction, aren't you, Councillor Duncan?
Yes, should be, you know, the very heaviest. It's a bit like we condition deliveries to supermarkets to make them, you know, more sociable for other road users. And it's just looking at that kind of condition, if that's possible.
I'll take your point. James, can you help us here?
So we probably need to check with the applicant that accept the condition that it's being referred to, but you could always delegate that to me. And if, you know, if committee feels that they can only approve this with that extra control of heavy goods vehicles because of the noise implications, then you could approve it this evening with that extra condition. And if the applicant doesn't deal with it, then obviously we'd have to come back to committee again.
James, I mean, on the basis that the highways officer is indicating that the Royal Mail don't use large numbers of heavy vehicles down there, they're only using 7.5 tonne vans. Hopefully, then the applicant wouldn't have a major problem with it. Our problem will be if obviously if the Royal Mail are using a lot of big stuff, then the applicant may balk. But from the size of the unit and the access, it would appear that that's not going to be the case anyway. It's the time they want rather than the size of vehicles. Am I correct?
Yeah, I mean, what's driving this application is concerns that the applicant has that when leases are renewed and that sort of thing, that and given the wider economic situation, that because this is restricted, these units in terms of their usage, that they could lose tenants and not be able to gain new tenants. So I think we understand as officers why we have this application, and obviously the condition that's being proposed would further restrict them. We don't think the skip condition would unduly concern the applicant, because the design of these units and the kind of strategy behind this small employment park, it was never designed to attract that sort of tenant. So whereas there are the units E, F and G, which are the 3 slightly larger units, in theory those units could involve heavy goods vehicles accessing them. A number of the other units are simply too small. You know, the hard standings in front of the sites are only designed for cars and small vans. So,
well, if we members do have some concerns, and the County Mill Road, I know it is very narrow, and Councillor Duncan's absolutely correct. It is incredibly. The houses are very close to the road as well. They're not got big front gardens or anything. If members are generally comfortable, we delegate to the head of planning then to explore whether an additional condition is possible, and if not, then it will have to come back.
Yeah, I mean the condition is possible. The only point I'd flag is obviously it would in some way.
If the applicants then feel that we're defeating the object of what they've asked for, we'll have to come back and have another look at it.
Yeah, but I guess the simple answer, if members want to delegate to me to agree to put it to the applicant that they can only have a consent if they agree to a condition that prevents vehicles over a certain size
we keep the very biggie stuff out of there.
Variation, then hopefully the applicant would agree to such a condition, and we wouldn't have to refer it back to planning committee.
Councillor Duncan, are you comfortable with that?
Yes, I think it's not that we're saying there can't be larger vehicles accessing the site from time to time, like they said there were only 4. It's just when, so they could operate 24 hours. I mean, a bit like supermarkets. Some supermarkets operate 24 hours, but the delivery hours with very large vehicles are restricted to certain times that will not cause disturbance and wakefulness to nearby residential properties. So I don't think that we're restricting too harshly with asking these to be throughout the working day or some reasonable time at night. It's just that we don't want them steaming down Cowley Mill Road at 3 in the morning. And if they do object to that, then I would query how honest they are being with us and what their intentions really are about this. And maybe we need to ask a few more questions about that, because if they are these size units and 99.9% of the traffic is within this 7.5 ton smaller unit, then we don't have a problem with that, and neither would they, I would suggest. So yes, if it could be delegated, I would hope that we could agree on that. Thank you.
Just to clarify the hours so it's clear. So at the moment, there's no restriction between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. So effectively what a condition would do is between 9 p.m. and 7 in the morning, it would prevent the heavy goods vehicles, but allow them to operate more flexibly in terms of the small white vans in effect.
Yeah, I'm getting a no.
And the logical threshold would be 7.5 tons, because that's already a threshold in the wider highway network. So they wouldn't be able to go over the small bridge with 7.5 tons in any case, nor can they go northwards. In fact, they can only go down Cowley Mill Road in any case.
Okay, are we comfortable with that, everybody?
Yes, thank
you. And we're done. Councillor Higgins, are you? I wasn't sure whether yes or no.
I understand why other members are thinking about it, but I do find that we're sort of like getting ourselves stuck in the mud about these things. Is that at the moment we have a 7.5 limit in the area. Yeah, I think the benchmark is what the Royal Mail do, because I've seen Royal Mail vehicles as, you know, Arctics and stuff like that. And if as long as Royal Mail are adhering to the 7.5 ton, I don't see it's an option. But there again, on the other hand, I'm not going to die in a ditch about this. I could leave it to the head of planning to deal with it. But I do think that we sometimes just get a little bit clouded about these issues. But apart from that, anyway, that's all I have to say, really.
Okay, I'll push this one. I am proposed and seconded. We've changed the conditions very slightly since that. We've now added vehicle idling, which I think sounds very sensible. And we're also going to delegate to the head of planning to negotiate some hours restrictions on the very large vehicles. Councillor Higgins, sorry.
You forgot the thing that we're going to look about trees or some form of planting on site.
I did, because I didn't write it down. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, right. In which case, I'm going to move to a vote. Councillor Tuckwell.
For Mr. Chairman, with the delegated bit and some of the changes that you mentioned.
Yeah, I'm taking everyone's agreeing to the package we've just pulled out. Yeah, Councillor Duncan.
Yes, 4 as amended, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Hagger.
4, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Higgins, you proposed. Councillor Melvin.
Yes, 4 as amended, Chairman.
As amended, yeah, right. Councillor Morgan, you seconded. Councillor Morse.
4 as amended, Mr. Chairman.
Right, so that's 7 votes in favour of the amended proposal. That one's approved. Do you agree, Luke?
Yeah, I agree with that, Chairman.
Okay, agenda item 11 is only before you because we needed to reconsult on an amended site plan, which I understand is in relation to them needing a bigger compound because of the COVID-related issues. Perhaps, Mandy, you could just indicate the revised site plan. Well, we can't change anything else because everything else is the same as we already agreed.
That's correct, Councillor Lavery. If I take you through the site location plan as amended, excuse me, there is an additional compound proposed in this area here. So previously the red line was just this area to the south, and now and the access road. Now we're proposing an additional compound to facilitate social distancing as a result of current requirements. That is the only change. There is no other change to the application, and therefore I don't intend to go through the additional plans, but I do have them if we need them. I will stop presenting and hand back to you.
Councillor Higgins, Councillor Morgan, Councillor Tuckwell. Well, everyone's going hands here. Let's see what Councillor Higgins has got.
I'll propose this.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
I'll second the proposal.
Does anybody else want to add anything else? No, no, no. Thank you very much. Right. Councillor Tuckwell.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Duncan.
For.
Councillor Hagger.
For.
Councillor Higgins proposed. Councillor Melvin.
For, Chairman.
Councillor Morgan seconded. Councillor Morse.
For, Mr. Chairman.
Right, that's 7 in favour, unanimously approved. Do you concur, Luke?
Yes, I agree with that, Chairman.
Right, I move to the last item. The head of planning is going to leave us in a moment. This is described as the former Sea Cadet site, Water Splash Lane. This is the one that's on the edge of Cranford Park. So, Mandy, will you explain this one to us, please?
Mandeb, I think you're muted, I'm afraid.
Sorry about that, just talking to myself.
We all do that.
Apologies. So item number 12 is the former Sea Cadet site on Water Splash Lane in Hayes. The application is seeking, if I go through the application drawing, so this is the location plan which identifies the site in red on your screens. The application site is within the green belt, and that is fully addressed within your committee report. If I take you first through the proposals, I do have a verbal update before I forget, which I will highlight when I go through the plan. So again, the application site is within the green belt, and it's primarily the entrance into Cranford Park, which is located to the south. Cranford Park is currently in the process of having significant investment ploughed into it in order to provide additional facilities for the quantity of new homes that are being built and facilitate a new park for new residents. So this is the actual site location plan, which is a bit more truncated. So we are proposing works that will widen and enhance Water Splash Lane itself. This is the main area of the site, which used to host the former Sea Cadets building, which has been vacant for some time. And then the area to the south is an area that's proposed for a small playground in order to facilitate some additional amenities for existing and future residents. The application site, the existing site plan identifies that this is the building that's proposed to be demolished, and the majority, or quite a significant amount of area, which is all part of the application site in the Greenbelt, is currently concrete and hard standing. So it was otherwise providing parking associated with the Sea Cadets building. So the application now proposes the erection of 2 dwelling houses, which have their own dedicated car parking, a public car park in the area where there was previous hard standing. There is no development proposed in these areas, so predominantly the area of hard standing is what is being used to facilitate the 2 new homes, the publicly accessible car park, which will serve Cranford Park on the whole, and then this new proposed children's play area. Now, I think you can see at the bottom of the screen there is an indication of what the children's play area or equipment will look like. Now, if we turn to page, bear with me, I'm on the wrong page. If we turn to condition number 11, one of the things that is proposed to be conditioned is to ensure that we have adequate child play space. Now, the wording of the current condition is quite restrictive. So when we've tried to enforce this condition in the past on applications, it's been extremely difficult for us. So one of the things that I would request is that we seek delegated authority to liaise with green spaces to have this condition seeking to have adequate stimulating play, which is DDA compliant, rather than seeking for the current wording, which is for complex or multiple disabilities. And that's primarily to ensure that we have we can actually deliver a play area that is fit for purpose and not unduly restricted by the wording of condition number 11. I will leave that with Councillor Lavery to consider and then vote on, as I appreciate it's not part of the addendum. There is actually no addendum on this item except for this verbal one that I've just mentioned. So the car park that's proposed would serve all of the future occupants and users of Cranford Park. It would not be for solely the 2 residential units. If I take you through the floor plans for the 2 homes, so these are the ground floor plans and the first floor plans. So we are proposing 2 3-bedroom family units, which are much needed within the borough and therefore supported in principle. The report does look at the fact that they do have a slightly greater impact on the openness of the green belt, but on balance, it's considered that the proposal as a whole constitutes inappropriate development, but there are very special circumstances. Overall, there is a reduction in the extent of hard standing. The application site returns the site to some beneficial uses. So the site has been the subject of extensive antisocial behaviour since the Sea Cadets vacated the premises. The public car park would be of great benefit to the visitors to Cranford Park and those living within the local vicinity. There is also proposed woodland tree planting around the site, which would help to not only improve air quality in this air quality focus area, but also gives back to the wild area that's located around the floodplain of the River Crane. The proposals also seek the widening of Water Splash Lane, as I mentioned. So at the moment it's fairly narrow, and hopefully those enhancements will encourage people to use the public car park and also use Cranford Park itself. And it's also delivering a children's playground, which is of some 300 square metres, which is always going to be of benefit, because I don't believe you can ever have enough child play space. I'm sure you can, but in such an urban environment, it is supported that we would have an additional play space. Officers do consider that the benefits, when weighed against the drawbacks of the proposed development, are significant, and therefore very special circumstances weigh in favour of the proposal. If I take you through the rest of the site plan, so these are the elevations for the 2 proposed residential units, some typical sections, and then we have a bird's eye view of the plan, which indicates the area of Cranford Park, or the wider Cranford Park to the south. And then there are some aerial views of what was the former Sea Cadets building and all of the hard standing around it. Here's the Cadets building itself, and a view along North Hyde Road. So it's actually Water Splash Lane runs in here. So that's the area that would be enhanced in terms of vehicular access. So this is the lane itself, which would be improved. You can see it's fairly narrow and single lane, so the enhancements would be an improvement to highway and pedestrian safety. The application is recommended for approval, subject to the conditions and the legal agreement set out within your officer committee report. I will stop sharing the presentation and hand back to Councillor Lavery.
Right, I've got Councillor Higgins, followed by Councillor Tuckwell, followed by Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Chairman. Well said, Mandip. I know that toddlers are a handful. And I also like it when other people who drive electric cars say we should have more power points for electric cars. Anyway, on this proposal, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I like what their officers have done with this. I think it's really good. But I do have 2 concerns. The first thing is the parking. The parking, is there any, you're going to say that it falls within the regulations, but the parking for those 2 new buildings, is that just going to encourage people to be parking on the public car park? Also, what measures have we put in place after hours of lighting on the car park? And isn't it possible that those parking spaces are sort of, because they're sort of blending into the others, shouldn't there be some sort of gate there or something like that to stop public going in. Obviously, if the family has children or something, they don't want other cars just driving up to their drive. Those are my points, and if the officers can come back to them, that would be brilliant. Otherwise, I will propose this.
Amanda?
So the two parking spaces allocated for the property are directly outside the property, and I think the landscaping condition is something we could potentially use if you wanted to add an informative to say further details should be provided. I think what would effectively happen in practice is that the treatment of the two residential bays might be a different colour to those of the public car park to avoid having lots of gates and to delineate in some way that these are not part of the public pay and display car park or free car park. I don't know what it will be in its future form.
I come back through you, Chairman. I understand what you're saying, Mandit, but opposite those parking spaces for the residents, it runs into a green space. I mean, we've got to make sure that other people are not parking on that side either, are we? So how are we going to effectively, is that with the landscaping, you're going to someone put a bollard so they don't park on the green, on the grass? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Apologies, I missed the point completely. Yes, hopefully through the landscaping we can control that there should be no injudicious parking, so we would only be seeking parking within those bays and to prevent any harm to those future residents. I don't believe the detail of the landscaping for the area and the woodland has been fully detailed, but once that is via the conditions, hopefully that will bottom out that there should be adequate provision for the space for vehicles to come in and out of their residential car parking bays.
Okay, through you, Chairman, as well. And what about the security of the public car park after hours? Are there going to be low-level lighting, or what do we have there?
I will be honest.
There is nothing in
I'm so sorry, that you're right. There isn't.
There's nothing there. So if we can,
there's nothing there. No.
Can we put something in, please? Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry about that.
I proposed it.
Councillor Tuckwell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Some good questions there from my colleague, but yeah, I like this scheme. I think it improves access to the park. The special circumstances test have been passed as far as I'm concerned, and more family homes can never be sniffed at. So I'd be happy to second recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Morse.
Mr. Chairman, I've had 5 years dealing with this location. This has been one of the bones of my life. And Councillor Higgins hit the target. The issue here is what happens after dark. This car park, it's not gated, it's not lighted. The individuals who are living in these houses could be surrounded by drugs dealing. I think I've had a serious issue raised by the police that we need to review how we manage this, and even the alignment of the houses, I think actually I have concerns with. So I think this should be deferred and discussed, and we should have information, because the police often provide security advice on security aspects of how we manage this car park, because basically we have a number of, particularly in Pinkwell, we have a number of locations where after dark people turn up and there's drug dealing, and particularly a nice inviting car park like this would be, I think, something they would not miss.
While
I'm very seriously concerned about this, Mr. Chairman, so I'm making all these points. I'll leave it.
Yeah, no.
Can I suggest that we seek a condition that imposes gates to have the car park locked? So
well,
it's
can I make another suggestion? Well, the trouble with that one, Mandit, is how do the residents get in and out? But I also, whilst thinking about what Councillor Morse has just said, I noticed we don't have a secure by design condition.
You're right, we don't. So we can seek secure by design, and hopefully one of the things that they would probably suggest is that the car park is locked out of hours.
Well,
but
secure
you're right,
by design covering both the car park and the houses.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Councillor Morse, I think is okay with that. Councillor Higgins is okay.
Well, my point is,
can I come back?
Hang on. Let me. Councillor Morse was his point. So let me just.
I would rather that we have the report from the police, defer this, have that report, because there'll be aspects of this they've had 5 years experience, because one of the other issues is even the play area. When you put this location, because there's easy routes of escape, the people who do the drug dealing like these sort of locations because they can escape from the police, and it gives the police lots of problems. So that I've had it seriously from my ward sergeant that this is of great concern to them, and I think we should get this reviewed at another meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let me hold that for a let me take Councillor Duncan. I'll come back to you, Councillor Higgins.
Well,
Chairman, Councillor Duncan appears to have just dropped out of the meeting there, so it might be worth jumping to Councillor. Oh, nope, she's back. Hang on.
Right, well, connections are not good tonight. Councillor Duncan, you back with us?
yes, I am. Can you hear me, Chair?
We can now. You'll have to start whatever you were saying again, because we lost you just as you started to talk.
Oh gosh, my points really have been made by others, but it does say on here that there are gates for pedestrians with access to the park, and you know, as with many parks and public open spaces in the borough, these are closed at night for security reasons, but it doesn't say anything at all about the public car park. And we know, not just from well, Councillor Morse has told us about the difficulties that police have already experienced in this area, but also from other areas. You have to control these. I mean, I've worked in various wards. Whenever there have been areas like this, it isn't just drug dealing, it's prostitution, it's all kinds of criminal activities going on. And these houses are literally, I mean, the side of them are 3 feet away from this. They're family houses. I mean, no family, well, no individual would want to be in close proximity to that. We've got to keep these residents safe. We've got to make it a safe area. And I think we can only do that with detailed discussion and guidance from the police. So I'm afraid on this, I am with Councillor Morse. I would like it to be deferred until we can get full comments from the police on these matters. I wouldn't feel happy about approving something where they're going to be families living so close to this. Thank you very much, Chair.
Councillor Higgins, I had you held to come back to me.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Again, this is not, I know it's a really serious problem, and I'm not sort of like trying to belittle it at all, but there is solutions here. If there was a key, if the gates were locked, and then they had a key code access for residents, then that would alleviate the problem of the access of in and out. I do think that we need to, but I think it can be done by officers really, and come back to the two leads in the committee. That, as I said, what I pointed out was the lighting. The lighting is a big issue, and we can put cameras in there now as well, facing certain ways. So there is small elements we can do. I don't know whether it's worth us deferring this. I think if there's time to do it, then that's great. But if there isn't, then I suggest we leave it to, obviously, I don't know how this works now, Mandy. Do you then deal with it because the head of planning is involved in it?
Yes, that's right. But can I make a different suggestion? Would you mind if I put the proposed site plan back up, Councillor Lavery? Chairman?
Yeah, no, please do. And then I've got Councillor Morse has also indicated to me.
There is an opportunity to possibly relocate the residential car parking. If you just look at the plan that I present to you, and I'll try and get my poker up. So if the residential parking was to be positioned here, there is every opportunity to install a gate to prevent access to the remainder of the car park, which would, I assume, alleviate your concerns about not having sufficient access for future residents, but also allowing the car park to be secure and safe. Now, the primary reason for for trying to get houses onto this site is to have some natural surveillance of the car park, which would, in effect, deter things like antisocial behaviour within the public car park. But I appreciate there are concerns about the fact that it could be used by anybody 24/7. So I think a reconfiguration of the car parking layout and the installation of sufficient gates enclosing the car park in this location could probably overcome the concerns that you have, and Secure by Design would be consulted on the discharge of the condition in order to ensure that it meets their requirements for the safety of the future residents and the car park. Shall I stop sharing, or should I keep it on for further discussion?
Could you leave that up there, Mandip? I think that may be helpful. Councillor Morse followed by Councillor Higgins is the order I've got on my sheet. Councillor Morse? You're still muted.
Apologies.
Councillor Morse, sorry.
Yeah, I do take the view. I appreciate what's been said, and that's what I think. That actually, we have to completely redesign this project. But I really would like to have the police give us a Secure by Design information at a future planning meeting, because there's no rush on this issue. I understand all the principles of why I want to do it, but I actually think this is quite a key issue, and I would like professional advice. Thank you. I'm moving that this is deferred.
Hang on 1 second before I take that. There's me here, Councillor Higgins, who's moved something else, so I'm going to have to adjudicate at the moment.
Yeah, I do think that this has to pass the test anyway before it gets approved anyway. I like what Mandip's saying, although the only thing I'd question that is what's going to happen to those spaces at the back, because they can't be public because they would be overlooking the property. So in theory, we would lose 2 spaces there. Is that what you're trying to say, Mandip?
No, I think they would just swap to being car parking spaces. So at the moment, there are 2 references of plot 1 and plot 2. Let me go back to my pointer. Can I find it? There we go. So these 4 spaces would become public car parks, and then we would secure better fencing to delineate what is private residential land and then what is the public car park on this side. And that again would be through the landscaping condition and simply through a condition to seek the reconfiguration of the car park.
Yeah, but then how would you so then if you own the property, you'd have to walk all the way along the car park,
this access road around the back.
Yeah, exactly. So wouldn't it be better just to flip those around, those 2 units the other way, so they're facing a different way?
You then have problems of where the gardens lie. Again, that could be looked at, but I think that's more of a fundamental design change. It's not unusual to have to walk into your front door from here or here.
Yeah, but we're talking about 3-bedroom properties. They're not going to be cheap, are they? Let's be honest. I mean, yeah, they're not. I can tell you that now. I just think if we can't sort of, I understand what you're trying to say, but I think you'd have to either make those 2 spaces the other side, so there's no view of overlooking or anything like that, because they're 2-story buildings. So even if you're standing there outside your car, you can look right through the windows, as it were. So we have to be a little bit careful there. I think the easiest solution is just to lose those 2 spaces, in my opinion, and gate where you said. So, that's my view anyway. But I still think it should be, we should try and, I don't know what the time constraints on this, so if someone can tell me, then that's fine.
I don't know, but I suspect there are wider time constraints on this site, which I suspect are in the background of this. Okay, at the moment I have got, let's just summarise where I think we are. We've got Mandip has asked for condition for delegated authority to amend condition 11 to get a more workable condition. We certainly need a Secure by Design condition. We need lighting in the car park. And we also need the landscaping to have means of enclosure. Now, the police report I accept, but I doubt that's going to, I mean, if this can achieve Secure by Design, to me, I think I'd be comfortable with that. The car park layout may end up changing as a result of Secure by Design, but we'll just wait and see where that takes us. Yes? Councillor Morse, I think you're either cutting me off or you're indicating.
Yeah, basically what I'm saying, I put forward that we actually defer this because what's being suggested is we don't know what we're approving, and it's all been attempted just to avoid actually delaying the decision. And I think in this particular case, I think there needs to be a lot of thought done to this. And if I have to, I'd have to vote against it. I don't want to do because obviously the principles of the development are completely correct. But I do want to stick to the fact that I think this should be deferred.
Okay, you're proposing a deferral. Councillor Higgins has proposed an acceptance when Councillor Tuckwell seconded that. So I've got two competing resolutions on the table at the moment. So I'm going to, let's just see if the majority of members are happy to vote for. If not, then we're going to end up in a deferral, I think. I think I'll take them that way round. Councillor Higgins did propose first, so Councillor Higgins followed by Councillor Tuckwell. Luke, I'm correct there, aren't I?
Yes.
In terms of the order I got the proposals.
Councillor Tuckwell was also just indicating. I don't know if he still wishes to speak. Sorry.
Do you wish to come in again, Councillor Tuckwell, before I push this?
I hear the debate, and I'm not keen to defer because I think the conditions can cover it off as long as, you know, maybe secure by design detail could be delegated, as you say, and then referred to yourself and the Labour lead. I don't know.
I'm happy to leave that to officers.
In effect, the officers don't make that decision anyway. It would be the police that provide us with confirmation.
I'm not going to second guess the police. If the police say they are happy with it, I'm not going to second guess the police. If the police come back and say we think this works on security grounds, assuming they will have talked to the neighbourhood sergeant and everybody else, I'm not going to second guess them because I'm not a security expert. Okay, I think I've heard from most people. I've two competing proposals on the desk. I'm going to take the proposal, we accept it first and see where that goes. And then and Luke will no doubt watch my voting carefully because we're going to see I get this right. Right, Councillor Tuckwell, you seconded, so therefore I'm taking you as in favour. Councillor Duncan?
Yes, I would like to defer, and I do not want the spaces in front of the houses to become public spaces. Okay. I think they should be there. I did indicate, Chair, but you didn't see me, but it didn't matter. I'd just like to make that point. Okay, so do you, in terms of the proposal that's on the table, which is that we accept this, are you voting against or abstaining? I'm voting against. Okay, that's fine. Because Councillor Hagger.
Yes, Chair. I mean, I'm not happy with it. So I'm actually going to vote against for defer.
Well, hang on, at the minute, we've got a proposal that we accepted. So let me just deal with that one first, and then I'll deal with the next one next. Councillor Higgins, you proposed, so I'm taking your okay. Councillor Melvin?
Yes, Chairman, I'm not happy. I'm not voting for. I would like to agree with the deferral.
Okay. Councillor Morgan?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Morse knows this area far better than I do. I'm not happy with the way we have got this parking, so I will be asking for a deferral, so I'm against the current application.
Okay, and Councillor Morse indicated he was against anyway, yes?
Yes.
It's okay, I've got to do this correctly, otherwise I get... So I've got 2 votes in favour and 5 votes not in favour of voting it through, but not wishing to reject it. Yes?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
For the approval proposal that was put forward by Councillor Higgins, it's 2 for and 5 were against approving.
That's what I've got.
Yes. So
right,
now
that one falls. Well, I have a deferral proposal from Councillor Morse and Councillor Duncan. Yes, in front of me.
Yes.
So going back.
Confirm, Chairman.
Sorry.
Confirm, Chairman. Yes.
Yep. Good.
Deferral.
Yeah, I'm making sure I've got this right because otherwise this world gets complicated. Right. So going back round a vote again. This vote says we defer the application. Councillor Tuckwell.
Well, I can't vote for both, so I am against.
You're against, fair enough. Councillor Duncan is obviously for deferral. Councillor Hagger?
For, Chair.
You're for. Councillor Higgins?
I agree with Steve. I'm against this. So.
No, that's fine. I thought you were, but I've just got to do the vote so the public can see it. Councillor Melvin?
No, I'm for deferral, Chairman.
Councillor Morgan?
For the deferral, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Morse? You're for deferral because you proposed it. Right, I got that 5-2 the other way round now, Luke.
Yes, Chairman, I have 5 votes for deferral and 2 against.
Right, so that winds up as a deferral, and will come back to us in due course. That is the last application on my list tonight. Can we just all make sure our microphones remain muted while